$22 million, and he's 7.
What's up, guys? It's Jason here, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Why the MBA is Worthless in 2022 Insight. Greed is good. That assertion by Gordon Gekko, the protagonist of 1987 blockbuster Wall Street, is probably recognizable to many MBAs, whether in the 1980s or today. The prestige of an MBA, even from non-Ivy League universities, continues to tantalize in some circles because it's seen as one means of pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps to achieve the American dream. While its actual effectiveness in terms of increasing post-grad incomes is questionable, its appeal is nonetheless roaring. As of 2020 last year, about 70% of US-based MBA programs saw an uptick in applications. On the surface, it's a strange phenomenon since MBAs from non-elite schools result in little to no uplift in post-grad incomes, yet a 2-year MBA from second-tier and even online schools that lack in-demand networking opportunities can cost anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000, much of which is often funded by student loans. Sounds like a trap? It's obvious that public and private student loan providers are winning, but the MBA graduates are not. So what's going on? I always felt I missed out by personally not getting an MBA, but it is still true nowadays that in the new era of startups, cryptocurrency, blockchain, unicorn everything, the world is no longer just investment banking and consulting anymore after all. Did you know that Yale and Singapore have a joint venture that Singapore decided to early announce terminating? Is that an example of Ivy League arrogance coming to an end? In this video, we're going to examine the top 4 truths about why today, in today's society, the MBA is worthless and a waste of time. At the end, I'll go over what I think is the future of the MBA. If you wouldn't mind just tapping that like button for the algorithm, I'd really appreciate it, as this is a brand new channel I started this year. If you have an MBA, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for new videos each week. Thanks for doing that, and now let's continue on with the rise and fall of the MBA. Number 1. Fall in MBA, real demand even through COVID uncertainty. It may seem counterintuitive that MBA programs are more popular during times of economic turbulence, but upon closer inspection, it does make sense. But mostly for the select few able to get into the top MBA programs, such as Stanford's, Harvard's, and Columbia's. In fact, a director of research at the Graduate Management Admission Council, the leading association of graduate business schools internationally, pointed out that MBA applications have a history of surging during recessions or general times of economic uncertainty because they're considered an opportunity for MBA students to gain new skills and stand out from the overcrowded pool of job applicants once they've finished graduate school. That makes sense, right? It seems like a pretty calculated bet. Can't find a job? Might get laid off during the recession? Go get an MBA. On the other side, MBA schools have also indirectly been hoping the COVID situation causes an increase in funding by extending deadlines, waiving test fees, and MBA application fees. But even with that, COVID hasn't been an expected goldmine for schools that offer MBAs. Let's take a look at Harvard Business School, aka HBS, which has dropped to number 5 in terms of domestic ranking, but remains number 1 internationally and perhaps in terms of name recognition as well. HBS benefited from COVID with its MBA applications in 2016 at 10,351, 9,886 in 2017, 9,228 in 2018, and during COVID saw a slight rebound at 9,304. But let's go back further in time. The number of applicants at HBS in 2009, 9,063. That's a nominal growth rate of less than 3% over 10 years. Given the growth of the US economy, which has grown nearly 50% in the past decade from $14 billion to $21 billion in 2020, or even inflation where $1 in 2009 is now worth $1.28, the demand for the most prestigious MBA in the world has fallen dramatically in real terms. Although some schools may show rising applications, the number of applications has not kept pace with the growth of the rest of the world, or given the fact that the number of MBA programs in the US have been falling. Back in 2014, there were 1,308 accredited full-time MBA programs in the US. In 2019, 119 less. Now, as of 2021, there are now less than 900 MBA schools accredited by the AACSB. That's a fall of more than 30% in the number of MBA programs in less than 10 years. With stable or falling supply with increasing demand, the number of applications should follow the Bitcoin price trend, right? If the MBA was really in higher demand, the number of Harvard applications should be up at least 2 to 3 times from the number a decade ago. Not stagnant for the number 1 MBA program in the world. This shows that people realize the MBA degree isn't as valuable or desirable as it once was. Number 2. International MBA students are also dropping throughout COVID. While the stereotypical image of the American business executive may still be something along the lines of John Hamm from Mad Men, in fact, international students are a lifeline for the program. So much so that in 2020, 30% of the top 10 MBA programs were international students. COVID put a damper on that, with Bloomberg Businessweek reporting a 14% decline in international MBA students from the previous year. The reasons for the decline in international students are pretty clear. 1. Many students logistically could not enter the USA. 2. Even if they could enter, most elite MBA programs were remote only, while the tuition did not reflect the innately lower value of an all-remote MBA program. After all, it's far more awkward and difficult to network with your potential angel advisor, company partner, or colleague over Zoom than it's casually striking up a conversation in person. 3. International MBA graduates would find themselves even less desirable to employers post-graduation because of the higher barrier to entry in terms of hosting their H-1B. What does that all add up to? A lot of stress, time, and money to roll the dice on a high-flying career in business or finance. Considering that in 2020, Yale's entering MBA class was 40% international and Columbia Business School's was 44%, the future of expensive MBAs does not bode well. On top of that, although Indian nationals have taken over the #1 spot from Chinese students for the first time in 2019 in terms of admission to MBA programs, the economic clout of Chinese students can't be underestimated. With the rise in AAPI violence and a de facto Cold War going on between the US and China, it's yet to be seen if top students from India and other countries can make up for a possible decline in Chinese interest in studying in the US. Check out my video on the fall and rise of racism in America. Believe it or not, YouTube had previously banned that video. Talk about freedom of speech. Number 3. If you're not already elite, you won't get your payday at the end of the MBA. The whole point of the MBA is to increase your earnings in a shorter period of time than your non-MBA colleagues. That's why MBAs are especially attractive historically to groups in the US who need that extra competitive edge to get ahead. Primarily women and international students. It shouldn't be shocking then that 62% of business schools reported an increase in women applicants. Interestingly, there is a double-digit difference in the number of women to male applicants for certain types of programs such as online MBAs and part-time and executive programs generally. That demonstrated need for flexibility perfectly reflects the COVID reality that up to 60% of working women found themselves in becoming unpaid caretakers for children, elderly relatives, and taking on other additional household and homeschooling responsibilities. While both international students and women pursue MBAs to earn more and faster, the reality is that getting an MBA only bumps your salary if you're graduating from a top MBA program. Breaking down the numbers, in 2020, Stanford's MBA program was #1 in the US. It leads to an average salary and bonus of $176,000 according to US News. Cha-ching! Given that in 2019 to 2020, Stanford's MBA program had a selective 7% acceptance rate, and comparable competitive MBA programs are equally selective, only a handful will have tangible benefits from spending another 2 years in school. In fact, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, NACE, it claims that in 2021, the average MBA salary will be about $87,000, which is about 11% higher than non-MBA college graduates. Is an 11% difference after 2 additional years of studying and losing out on 2 years of income enough to justify taking out student debt to the tune of $66,300 on average? Probably not. If you've worked hard enough and had a little bit of luck to get an MBA from other top programs at NYU, Dartmouth, Northwestern University, University of Chicago, Cornell, Harvard, Columbia, University of Virginia, and Duke, would on average have yielded $150,000 in salaries and bonuses. In stark contrast, MBA programs that ranked at the bottom fourth of the US News and Report lists only averaged about $52,339. To make matters even worse, even the industry you're able to and want to break into determines your pay. Consulting pays top dollar on average at $152,470, financial services at $129,889, and technology at $124,289. Compare that to manufacturing, which on average pays $100,442 for an MBA, the nonprofit sector paying $85,154, and the government paying $80,520. To no one's surprise, the top MBA programs reported the lowest rates of unemployment and the highest rates of placement into top-paying industries and companies. The not-so-rosy bottom line, then, is that non-elite MBA professionals have to claw their way into prestigious companies, very similar to the way that non-MBA professionals have to. In most instances, it's a better bet to work strategically for 2 years as a launchpad into an elite company rather than be saddled with even more debt post-MBA and no guarantee of a job, period, much less at a competitive company. Number 4, MBAs don't necessarily prepare students to think outside of case studies. Ironically, many CEOs of the very companies that MBA students want to join don't see the value of an MBA. In this era of the Internet of Things, where everything and anything is easily accessible with an internet connection, opportunities to learn from anywhere in the world have become much more common. Affordable online platforms and apps such as Coursera and Udemy reinforce the new hyper-competitive normal that learning needs to be constant to stay relevant. Innovations with how people continuously learn, often thought up and implemented by people without MBAs, is disrupting the importance of formalized education. Employers are looking for people who can solve problems and think creatively. Coincidentally, the most notable business people ranging from Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg to Amazon's Jeff Bezos to Uber's Travis Kalanick don't have MBAs. Elon Musk, the co-founder of PayPal and founder of Tesla and SpaceX, observed that too many MBAs are running companies, and to remedy that problem, there should be more focus on the product or service itself, less time on board meetings, less time on financials. For anyone who has worked a 9-to-5 with or without an MBA, the bureaucratic processes that lead to slow decision-making, passing the buck, and less innovation as a result, Musk's words ring too true. MBA programs tend to reinforce more of the same outdated processes that contribute to many smart doers leaving corporations for startups. In today's ecosystem of startups left and right attempting to become unicorns, the MBA is not only preferred, but often avoided. Let me ask this question. Cryptocurrencies are part of the future of finance and investments. How many of the 900 MBAs have courses in crypto?
I don't get it.
I'd probably bet my bet on maybe less than 5%.
What? What?
Entrepreneur Jay Body, who left his job at Microsoft to found his own company, Spock.com for example, explained that the nature of the MBA doesn't suit the needs of companies creating entirely new industries, like when Uber first created the rideshare space or when Grubhub created the online food delivery space. Since the MBA program is focused on teaching people how to project future outcomes based on case studies, the equation doesn't add up when there are no prior case studies. There were no case studies to draw from when Travis Kalanick couldn't hail a taxi in Paris with his friend and the two went on to build Uber, or when 5 friends in Brown University decided to meld hipster aesthetics to selling something as uncool as mattresses online. By the way, be sure to check out my video on the rise and fall of Casper mattresses. It seems black and white, but to put it simply, shooters shoot. Future of the MBA. After all said and done, is the MBA a relic of the past? Based on current trends and trends of the near future, the answer is yes. That's simply because there are more choices about how people can learn and how to become wealthy, largely because of the internet. These days, teenagers and young adults thinking about their lives and how to make a living may not aim for a high-paying 9-to-5 if there are other viable alternatives. Namely, the possibility of making money from social media, becoming a content creator, an influencer, or otherwise launching a more flexible and autonomous career through the internet. What does the future look like? It's difficult to predict the future of the MBA, much like anything else, with 100% certainty, but let's consider that 75% of children between the ages of 6 and 17 want to be YouTubers, not lawyers, doctors, or traditional business people in suits and leather shoes. Considering that the highest paid YouTuber, Ryan Kaji, is now 10 years old and last year made $30 million by artfully unboxing and reviewing kids' toys, those 75% of children seem pretty smart. Does the generation growing up now need to attend an MBA program to create interesting and profitable content on YouTube, TikTok, or other platforms that don't even exist now? But will they by the time they're 22 or 30? Maybe yes, but most likely no. The more realistic scenario is that MBA programs will have to change with the times and begin to offer a more diverse curriculum that tackles industries that have only existed in the past 10 years, and provide people with the creative thinking needed to create the next generation of new industries. Right now you're watching this on YouTube, and more than 2.3 billion people access YouTube a month, and the platform has only been live since 2005. It's hard to think of the next big thing after YouTube, just like it's hard to think about what may replace the beloved MBA, but the next big thing is always around the corner. The next young people who are so entrenched in the internet and social media may be the founders of that next big thing. So with that said, thank you so much for watching my video. There was a significant amount of research and production that went into making this video possible. If you haven't seen already, check out my video on the rise and fall of American higher education or the Great Graphing Calculator ripoff featuring Texas Instruments. Those are two of my most recent personal favorites. I highly recommend both. As always, stay happy and healthy and stay tuned for another episode of Company Insight next week.